Lucien's idea of a relationship was to be in love, but to remain in charge. Kitty had to do what she was told.
She had a difficult life with him, and she used to describe to me this kitchen scene that she'd cook up something that she thought he liked, and then he sat at the table waiting, and then she put his down in front of him, and then she had to go and sit with her face to the wall in the corner while he ate it up.
Lucien felt free to do anything he liked.
While he was married, he was looking for something with me. Probably that's why they didn't last long, you know. Once you've had a good, you know, feed of something, you know, gets over it. And the way he used to be able to get away from Kitty was to say, I'm working on a night picture with Charlie, you know, and away we'd do an hour, you know, painting, and then that gave us leeway to go down the west. And he'd go back next morning, go through what marvellous night, you know, and a lot of work done. And that was it, you know.
The painting reflected how the relationship changed and tensions grew.
If you look at these, to me, the earlier paintings show my mother as a girl. And then you turn to this. This is a painting of a woman. There's a much greater sense of a self projecting at you as a viewer. There's a sense of sadness, even some anger, I think. It's to do with real life. It's the maturation of her faith. There's a much more complicated person being portrayed here. There are thoughts and emotions and a life going on, and the nature of her gestural self is richer and more complex, with her hand on her breast and the other resting on the mattress. And also a huge part of the painting is taken up with his yellow toweling dressing gown, and it somehow adds a difficult emotional aspect to the painting. Its sort of complex folds and the way it goes so deeply in at the waist.
Less than a year after this painting, Kitty and Lucien separated.
It was a terrible, terrible thing to experience. I'm sure, like most children do when their parents separate, that they think that they're some way to blame, and that I felt somehow at fault. When I was quite small, when we used to go to the park, we used to spend a lot of time doing handstands. I know that he was brilliant at headstands and handstands, and spent a large amount of his childhood standing on his head. And he was always sort of throwing me around, not in a way that hurt. I used to wonder, as I was sailing through the air, whether he wanted me to be an acrobat.
Lucien had fallen for high society beauty and intellectual Lady Caroline Blackwood. His infatuation fueled the next series of painting. Caroline's money bought him an upper-class lifestyle. Combe Priory in Dorset, horses and dogs, weekend parties, and frequent visits to Paris. In 1954, he went with her to see Picasso again. Unlike Kitty, Caroline couldn't be controlled. She was her own person, getting what she wanted. The romantic, erotic dream had turned into a nightmare. Lucien's painting reflected the tensions in the relationship. Caroline is in the light. Lucien in the shadow. The question seems to hang in the air. What is this situation? Paris was meant to be fun, but the love nest has become a battleground. When Caroline left him, Lucien was devastated. He returned to his old life in London, where friends, including the leading painter of his time, Francis Bacon, noticed a change.
When the divorce came through, people were worried that he was going to commit suicide, with Caroline. Thought Francis Bacon was anyway, because we were in the street, and he said, I'm just going upstairs in Dean Street. I'll see you in a minute. And Bacon said to me, he said, perhaps I go up there and keep an eye on him, because I think he's going to jump off the roof.
When Caroline left him, that was an extraordinary shock. It was unprecedented for him. He'd not been left. It was like as though his mother had left him. It was a kind of abandonment. Had he abandoned himself, he got into fights, he drank, he went wilder, and the painting was in a kind of transitional stage. Well, painting always is in a transitional stage if it's any good, but it was unusually transitional. And so, one way or another, his life had to be reorientated, and he found it difficult for 2 or 3 years. In a way, the misery which he cast off actually concentrated his mind, I think.
The experience concentrated Lucien's mind on a major problem in his painting. What did Lucien need to liberate his painting? In 1945, Lucien had befriended Francis Bacon, who was on the cusp of international fame. By the mid-50s, he was a superstar. Bacon had made it to this position entirely on his own terms. At that time, Lucien saw him as unique, the real thing. Lucien was stunned by the truth of Bacon's raw, fleshy brushwork, and his relentless effort to express the intensity of his feeling.
I think one of the things that really excited Freud is that Bacon really used to talk about how much he used to pack into every brushstroke. This is something that really, really excited Freud, the fact that he could free up paint, as we can see here around the face, not only in the way that the face is worked, but the fact that when he's finished the face, he's throwing the brush and creating this in a way, as Lucien used to always talk about what Bacon called the accident.
Bacon's dexterity produced what looked like spontaneous emotion. This immediacy demanded a response from Freud, but not to imitate Bacon's look. Freud moved away from the style that had made him successful, a hard-edged, smooth surface achieved with a soft, stable brush, which conveyed a sense of emotional remoteness, to a patchwork of marks made with a bigger, stiffer hogshead brush. Now, each stroke of paint would better satisfy Freud's intense personal engagement with the subject, to capture close up their living presence.
Most portrait painters, are content to achieve a good likeness of a person. Constantly in Lucien, you see him going way beyond that. He achieves something like a likeness, and then he just keeps putting more on and creating more effects. And each one of those marks is not predetermined, but it's another sign of his response to the person in front of him. And I think through registering all of those extra responses over such a long period of time, it does go beyond likeness and into this sense you have of his own engagement with that person.
It was so crucial for paint to become flesh that when he discovered a heavy lead-based paint, Kremnitz White, it so suited the way he saw things that he couldn't create without it. Kremnitz White helped give Freud his look of pasty, lived-in bodies lying in stained and damaged rooms.
Kremnitz White's a lovely paint, and it's got a lovely skinny quality about it, and Lucian, once he discovered it, was totally taken over. And I do remember at some stage the EU was going to issue a ban on paint with so much lead in it or something, and Lucian absolutely freaked out. He got in a total state of panic, and he lobbied Arnold Goodman, who was in the House of Lords at the time, to ask questions, and he bought up as far as he could the country's whole supply of Kremnitz White.
Freud lived to paint. It calmed him down, but he worked with such intensity 7 days a week that he needed to find ways of letting off steam. Help was close at hand.
He greatly admired Bacon.